All right, on this episode of the RSL Random Fan Podcast, we have a very special episode where we speak with none other than Trevor Brady from Wasatch Soccer Sentinel, one of the OGs from in the RSL podcasting universe. A lot of great stuff, a lot of silver linings. What else we talk about?
You got to stay for the very end where he gives his take on some insight about getting blown up by the front office.
Something to do with hammers.
It was very cathartic.
That's the word of the day, cathartic. And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoy this episode. And as you do, make sure you subscribe to us, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate your subscriptions, your follows, your likes, and your comments, negative or not.
You've been practicing?
I try. Yeah.
Man.
Lots of
Hey,
long drives in my car, talking to myself.
It's a good take.
Hey, if I can do it before 15 takes, I'm happy.
That's true.
All right. Thanks for listening. All right. It's another episode of the RSL Random Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Brandt, joined by
Brennan.
And Tyler.
And we have an incredibly special episode today. We have one of the OGs of Real Salt Lake podcasting, Trevor Brady from the Wasatch Soccer Sentinel, formerly the RSL Soapbox. Is that right?
Yes, that's all correct.
Okay, good. I was so worried we'd start. Usually I start off screwing things up, and so far it's just been smooth sailing. Minus technical difficulties for yeah. But I'm old. I'm not supposed to be able to answer a phone or nothing. Anyway, Trevor, we wanted to get to know you a little bit. We've kind of got to know you in the press box and stuff, and you're a lot nicer than no, just kidding.
Some of the other guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did you get into soccer, Trevor? Are you former MLS superstar? How did you end up? What's your soccer story?
My soccer story is it's boring. I played a bunch of sports when I was a kid. Then I went to middle school, met some new friends. I mostly played like baseball and basketball growing up. And then in middle school, met a bunch of other kids that played soccer. And so I just started playing with them. And then from there, I just played like city rec league type stuff. I didn't even know about like double A or like club teams or anything like that until I got to be like a sophomore in high school. But I got really into music. I did music everything in high school, so I didn't have time to play any sports or even like try out or anything. Like everything just calendars never matched up. And I was just so into music in high school that I really only played recreationally, to be honest. And then after high school, I played a little bit of indoor here and there with some friends. But as far as a player, I've never been good. I've never been um, one that like you would not be impressed by my skills. I enjoy playing. I love playing. Even now when I'm old and fat and don't run nearly as much as I used to. But I've never been one for playing. I got into refereeing a lot when I was about 14, 15, and I would do that in the summers or on the weekends. Did that for a couple years. And then when I was playing in indoor places regularly, I also started refereeing indoor as well. So most of my experience in and around is on the refereeing side. That's where I've excelled, if you want to use that word. Um, but yeah, that's my experience like playing and being around people playing soccer is mostly being not very good, but enthusiastic player, but refereeing a lot more and enjoying that side of the game a lot more. Um,
That's
and
Brandt
then
with podcasting.
yeah, about what was it, like 10, 12 years ago, something like that. I started attending games, and once I started attending games, that's when I ran into Matt, and also just being on Twitter. Matt Montgomery, who took over RSL Soapbox from the guy that had it previously. He had his own blog at the time, and then the guy running at RSL Soapbox wanted to stop. Matt took over, merged with his blog, and then we started a podcast with me, Matt, and a guy named Jason. who some of you may know. He eventually moved to Texas for work. And then we kind of stopped doing the podcast for a little while. And then we picked it up with Kyle Sipple, who's now part of the three guys on the podcast. And us three have been doing the podcast for 3 or 4 years now, 5 years, something like that. No, it had to be more than 5 years because we were doing it before the pandemic. Yeah.
Next year will be our 5th year, and you were doing it long before us. So
Yeah, like I said,
time flies.
with Jason, we probably did it for 3 or 4 years, starting in probably 2011, 12, something like that. And then there was a couple year break, and then we picked it up about a year before the pandemic, and then we've been doing it ever since. So that's the story. That's my entire soccer story.
Well, it's a lot better than mine, and I can tell there's a reason that I was drawn to you because I am the official ref lover on this podcast. I am the one
Nice.
that loves refs, and
I
irrationally
could tell.
most of the time, correct? So
I can tell by the other two faces that they're not ref lovers.
no, Tyler's come around. When we started this, Tyler, I mean, it was pitchforks every week.
It took a while, but I'm getting there. I'm getting
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
I appreciate the refs, at least at this point.
yeah.
So, what have you enjoyed? Well, I guess that's the question. Have you enjoyed doing the podcast with Real Salt Lake? How has that changed as you've done that over the years?
It hasn't really changed. I know I get to brag about myself, and I don't really like doing that, but I've always had hard opinions, and I've loved giving those opinions. And podcasts, as you guys know, is a great way to just give opinions without any immediate feedback. And I love that about podcasting, where I just get to have an opinion and put it out there. And obviously, you get a lot of feedback from people. Some of it's great, and some of it's not so great. And I love all of it. I'm not one of those people that feels like my opinion is the only opinion or the best opinion. Um, Everybody's got opinions, and I just like having opinions. And through being together with fans, like we started out sharing opinions on Twitter. That was how we all got to know each other on Wasatch Soccer, and how I got to know so many RSL fans was just talking on Twitter and sharing opinions and getting into arguments and doing the whole thing. So yeah, that part of it hasn't really ever changed. I've just always loved giving opinions, and I've always loved looking at the game, analyzing the game, and talking about the game during the game, after the game, with friends, with people who know what they're talking about, or people who don't know what they're talking about. I just enjoy talking about the game.
So I do have to ask. So what has been your most ludicrous interaction then? Like, who's been that fan that's just been like out of their minds crazy? Like, Bodie Hidalgo needs to play forward. Why is this guy not getting time at striker? You know, stuff like that. Like some dumb thing that I said once.
So no, so
Maybe more than once.
I've got two that come to mind, and they're not necessarily like RSL fan opinions about the team. There's always people that like love players that are actually bad. We ran into somebody who got a Johnny Steele tattoo,
Whoa, dude.
like legitimately, like a tattoo with the name Johnny Steele, and I think it was like a heart or something like that. It was I think, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I'm pretty sure it was just a woman that just had a crush on him. Like, we met her once, we saw the tattoo, and I guess she thought he was attractive, or something. She was not like a Northern Irish person who was, or anything like that. It was just, she loved Johnny Steele, and God bless her. I like Johnny Steele for a little bit, but he wasn't like a tattoo player. You know what I mean? Like, there's some players that you can get a tattoo
name
of.
one tattoo player though for RSL. Like literally, give me a
Like,
top five.
If I saw a fan with a Javi Morales tattoo, a Kyle Beckerman, a Nick Raimondo tattoo, like, I'd get it. It makes sense. You know what I mean? If I saw somebody with like a Diego Luna tattoo, I would get it. Johnny Steele though, like,
Burrito
no.
Martinez,
Yeah, like,
Johnny Menendez.
exactly, like, just not the player that I ever expected somebody to get a tattoo of. So that was kind of ludicrous. But as far as like ludicrous,
Maybe like a Nick Beasler kind of guy. Would it be a Nick Beasler? That'd be a good
yeah,
one.
like, that'd be.
It's just him sitting on the bench. What
No,
a
but
guy.
I'd say the most ludicrous meeting or like person that I met was able to meet by virtue of being on the podcast was Grant Wall. He reached out to me at one point years and years ago. Because Grant Wall, if you guys remember, bless his heart, rest in peace. He was kind of a silly goose on Twitter a lot. Um, Kind of an egotistical guy, searched his name a lot, injected himself into arguments that people didn't need him or want him to be a part of. Um, he was kind of an interesting guy on Twitter. But I got into an argument with somebody and he got into it. And then we developed like a back and forth, me and him, talking back and forth, not being jerks or anything. Like he just genuinely was having an argument, a discussion. And then he got in the DMs. We had a much longer, better discussion. And then that was, it was funny because that when I forget what World Cup it was, but there was a World Cup qualifier. The U.S. played in Salt Lake against Honduras. And Grant Wall leaked that information that that game was going to happen to me in the DMs. And so I kind of put it out there that the announcement was coming in a week or two, and it did. And that was fun. But then around that time, he was in town, obviously, for the World Cup qualifier. We got together for drinks. We had a nice, frank, like face to face conversation because that was one of the things I was telling him. I was like, this is all fine on the internet, but like, let's have this conversation like face to face. I think there would be a lot less misunderstandings. And we did. We went to Bourbon House and had a couple drinks and sat down and just chatted for an hour or two. And it was great. It was really, really great. So yeah, that was something I never thought would ever happen was an actual like world renowned journalist would like listen to me and talk to me and treat me like a colleague, which is really what he did. And it really meant a lot to me at the time. It meant a lot. It still means a lot to me today. That was, I think, the most ludicrous thing that podcasting has created for me.
That's a fantastic story. And a couple other questions before we start talking about Real Salt Lake. I'm just curious, how has you've been doing a lot longer, probably as long as anyone in the market when it comes to podcasting and sharing, you know, prescient opinions about Real Salt Lake. How has it changed, or has it changed since you started doing this?
How has what changed? You mean?
The whole podcasting environment around Real Salt Lake has
Oh,
it
okay.
changed? Has it, you know, what's changed about it, if anything?
Uh, it's become, it feels like, and maybe this is just me getting my head about it, but it feels like podcasting is kind of the way of that RSL is covered now. Whereas when we started, it was like we had the Tribune, we had the Deseret News, we had like actual beat writers at practices, at games, writing about games, doing match reports and transfer rumors and the whole thing. And that hasn't really been a thing for a while. The Tribune and Deseret News, they do talk about RSL, but not nearly as often. RSL has just become a lot more irrelevant in the local sports market. Um,
Boom.
yeah, I mean, yeah, but it is what it is, right? Um, but yeah, so the like coverage of the team has shifted a lot more to like guys like us, guys who are doing podcasts, realized, I mean, with pandemic, I'm sure everybody kind of realized that podcasts are kind of, they're not difficult to do. Um, so a lot more people staying at home were
I was
able
gonna
to
say
put
that's debatable.
podcasts. They were able to put podcasts out, and it's been great. There's been a lot more podcasts, a lot more people just talking about the team in a like organic kind of fan perspective, rather than like a match report journalist kind of perspective. On one hand, it kind of sucks that there isn't like the actual coverage of the team, but the other hand, it's cool because you get people just get to have opinions on the team, and people have their own sources and their own stories, and they get to report on the team. And it just makes it feel a lot more organic and a lot more real when it's just a bunch of guys, a bunch of dudes that just care about the team and want to talk about the team, rather than somebody who at times feels like they're just mailing it in. It's just their job, and they just have to go to the games and they just have to talk about it. I don't want to name any names, but there's definitely been people that have been like employed by the Tribune or employed by the Deseret News, who it feels like for a while it was just their job. They were just showing up and they were just writing what they had to write. They hit their 200 words and that's all they seem to care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was interesting. I read this story the other day on USA Today, and it was written, and all the guy talked about was Diego Luna and how the whole team needs to revolve around him going forward, and that he was the only exciting thing all year. And I was like, has this guy watched a match? Has this guy seen anything in the second half of the year? He didn't even mention Gozo at all. Mentioned
Yeah.
the DPs that didn't play great, and now it's like, come on, man! Like, did you even this is so irrelevant. It's like
Yeah, and also this is coming from a guy who says that Bodie Hidalgo needs to be our starting player, and also Nick Beasler needs to also come on the field. So, like what you were saying, podcasters seem to not have anybody tell them what's right and what's wrong, and I think that's a negative.
I don't think that's entirely true. I mean, we've definitely had people reach out and tell us that we've been wrong. And when I say people reach out, I don't mean like I mean like the team has reached out, which is another thing that's changed for historically. Like 12 years ago, the team and the communications didn't care about us, didn't cater to us, didn't help us. They knew who we were and they respected us, but they were like, "You're just loud fans," and that's really all it was you're just fans on Twitter that are all just a little bit loud. We weren't like covering the team. We weren't journalists or reporters, and that's changed significantly. I mean, we're in the post game press conferences asking public questions now, where 10 years ago that nobody would have entertained that notion at all. And part of that is, I think, a result of like what we were talking about, Tyler. When the team gets coverage, because it's kind of a small market and because it's just a problem with MLS in general the last couple of years, people don't watch the games a lot. I mean, they'll watch highlights and they watch things, but then they see Diego Luna getting called up to the national team and they go, "Oh, clearly that's RSL's best player. I'm going to write an article about RSL because we got to write at least one a year. Let's talk about how Diego Luna is underutilized because he's the national team player. He should be utilized more." Not taking into account, like you said, Gozo is a great shout. Not taking into account um, any of the other problems with the team or problems with trying to make Diego run the show because they just don't watch the games. And that's another part of what makes podcasts around RSL great is we all watch the games. We keep up and we know what's going on in a lot of ways better than the national guys because they're not watching RSL games. Sorry to break it to you. Yeah, they're not.
And it's also too the environment we live in now where mainstream media is just going through just horrific challenges and changes because of
Yeah.
How do you get advertising? Everybody else is on all kinds of other platforms to get their info and their news and stuff. So
Yep.
and then we want to get started talking about the RSL in this season. It's an amazing season. But the other thing, other than the reffing, which now I like even more. But the other thing that kind of is that you're one of the few guys that actually appreciates or even knows the glory that is Crawley Town. Because that's that kind of started our conversation because you recognized that I had a Crawley Town photo on my computer, and I appreciate that you came to Crawley Town, even though you are a Man U fan, which makes Brennan happy.
What, me?
Did you say, oh, are you a Man U fan, or you just remember watching Man U and Crawley Town?
No, I hate Manchester United. Well, let me back up just a little bit.
Well, thanks for the podcast, man. That was really fun. Anyways, we got
No.
somebody else coming on.
Let me
so
make you
we
feel
can
a
get
little
this
better.
going.
I don't like the Premier League as a general rule. I appreciate that it's very good, but I don't like have a team in the Premier League. I don't root for anybody. I generally, when I approach sports, I don't like the popular teams, and Manchester United was just like the popular team. All of my friends liked Manchester United, so I instantly didn't like Manchester United. That doesn't mean that I liked Manchester City. That doesn't mean that I liked Liverpool. That doesn't mean that I liked Tottenham or Arsenal. I tend to be pretty ambivalent about everything. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Manchester United. Um, No, it was because what I was telling you, the first game that I saw Crawley Town play was against Manchester United in the FA Cup when they made it to the fifth or sixth round, whatever that was, in like 2014 or 2013, whatever year that was. That was my introduction to Crawley Town. That was when I first started like rooting for them and following them. Um, and yeah, I want to make it clear I'm not as big of a fan of Crawley Town as you are, but I
Oh,
definitely
no.
recognize Crawley Town, and
Nobody is. I mean, if 1 out of 4 get a tattoo, he's number 4.
Yeah, yeah. If I got a tattoo, it'd be Crawley Town and RSL. I mean, those would be the two. It's weird how soccer fandom kind of grabs you out
yeah,
of nowhere.
yeah.
So this has been great getting to know you, but let's talk about. There's a lot to talk about this RSL season. How would you rate this Real Salt Lake season?
Give me a scale. You want like 1 out of 10? Are we grading
The
it?
giraffe.
Pass, fail? What's the scale here?
Well, I think you should do a 1 through 10, and then kind of give your like how last season was compared to what you think is going to happen next season. Kind of give it a
I mean,
once over.
it's just 5 out of 10. Like I feel like that's being generous. It's
And
just,
what could they have done better?
I mean,
Take the glasses off. Let's get serious.
I have to rub my eyes. They just need to like,
So many things.
and this
So many
is
things
so
could
like
have
they
been
just
better.
they just need to play good soccer. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's that's it. They need to like sign players that are good and they just need to play good soccer. And I want to be like more specific than that, but like let's start at step one. You know what I mean? Like they don't play an attractive brand of soccer. They don't play a very successful brand of soccer. They don't really play an exciting version of soccer. I mean, there were years when Kassar and Petke were in charge, and like the team was bad, but like they were trying stuff. And there was stuff that you would see happen and be like, okay, this is going to be fun. It's either going to work or it's not, but we know that it's going to be, something's going to happen here. And that doesn't happen with this team. The only stuff that like you see going on and you go, okay, I know it's going to happen next. It's all bad stuff. It's either going to be like a triple sub that's going to lead to a goal. It's going to be a Brian Vera yellow card. It's going to be a ball crossed that's going to beat the defender that's ball watching, whoever that is. You know what I mean? Somebody's going to get behind. It's just stuff that like you see building up and you're like, oh, okay, something bad going to happen. And it's a surprise when good things happen because that's not the way that the team played. Every now and then Diego Luna went crazy. There was a couple moments where Gonçalves did something really good and cool, and sometimes it led to something. Most of the time it didn't, but it was good and cool. But that's not the norm for Diogo. You know what I mean? So it like yeah, I just play good soccer and sign better players.
Well, before we get too far down that road, because I thought you were generous when you said 5. I out of 10, I might give it a 4 this season
Yeah, like
overall for a lot of reasons. Some of them extenuating, but what were some? Maybe start with some positives. What did you enjoy about this season? And then we can break down some other stuff.
I hate that you asked this question because I'm forced to mention that they made the playoffs.
Does that really count though? The play-in games that present
No,
playoffs. It's the pre-playoffs,
no, but
right?
like
It's not the playoffs.
it's better than not being in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like second base. You know what I mean? You felt it, but you didn't really go anywhere. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, like
Grounded
it's
first, you got a little bit of action. That's about it.
Couldn't
yeah,
get the ball.
and then exactly. Like it's
Over there, 2 hands. Trying to get this damn thing through.
it's not good enough. But it's not nothing. I guess is what I would say. We weren't the worst team in the West. We
tried,
definitely beat some
We
teams.
tried.
We definitely like we're better than the worst teams. If you had to list the 5 worst teams in the league, that wasn't us. So like that counts for something. It's not season redeeming and it's not worthy of extending the coach, but it's not nothing. We did also see Diego had a pretty good season. largely speaking.
Yeah,
On a
yeah.
scale of like league wide, it's kind of average, to be honest. I mean, 10 goals is not nothing, but it's not great. It's not, it's, you're not breaking any records. Um, Having nobody else on the team get to double digit goals is a big problem. And that's, again, it's good to have double digit goal scorers, but everything else about that is bad. It shouldn't be a Diogo Luna that should be your double digit goal scorer. It should be one of your U22 or TAM players or DP players that you brought in the offseason, all of which were non factors for the most of the part. Like, so there's some good things that bring it up to you met the expectations, the bare minimum, but that's not good enough. And that hasn't been good enough for years. But that's kind of where this team is for years, just been like meeting the bar, not exceeding the bar. And like
How
a D
much
minus is about that.
how much of that is extenuating circumstances? Because it feels like out of the three of us, I was the one probably that would have, like, if I'm in charge, I'm not extending the coach for a lot of reasons. But
Mm-hmm.
I understand there's extenuating circumstances. We've gone through multiple owners that haven't been up to snuff, like Uncle Dave when he brought in the team, and haven't captured the excitement with the fans and really made RSL relevant. So we do have new owners. So I understand the logic of them giving them one more season with all the new stuff going on. But at the same time, it's really difficult when you just sit back and look at what's the product on the field, even though I get that there's extenuating circumstances.
I don't think the extenuating circumstances warrant like slack or a leash. You know what I mean? The extenuating circumstances that they kind of get is that the offseason was a little bit screwy because the ownership situation. They probably couldn't spend as much as they wanted to spend in the offseason, but they did spend. Players were brought in and then they brought in players in the summer. You know what I mean? It wasn't the big massive overhaul that we were expecting with the kind of sales we had and the players leaving that we had, but that's still like I don't want to give them credit for that because that's what it feels like. It feels like we're saying, well, you couldn't have done any better. They definitely could have. Teams go through ownership changes and it doesn't disrupt the team for 2 years. And it feels like that's what's happened with RSL is ever since Deloitte did his thing, we've just been able to say, well, the ownership changed, so we got to give him time. Because Deloitte screwed it up for several months before we were finally able to get a sale. And then there was like a minute where the team was like, okay, we can start to see the effects of Ryan Smith and Blitzer. And then Chicho happened, and then Smith sold, and now we got the Millers. And it feels like that's all one big period where we've just been like, well, we got to give him time. And I don't believe that anymore because, like I said, teams go through ownership changes. We haven't changed the coach, we haven't changed the guy signing players in 2 or 3 years. We just extended both of those guys based on the work that they've done for the past 2 or 3 years. It's just not good enough, and I don't think that they've given the excuse that like, well, the ownership was a problem. And if it was, it doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't hold weight. That specific one doesn't. We don't have a $10 million player that's been injured all year, so we don't have that excuse. It's just been miserable and just not good enough all around.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm an MLS OG, and so I've always kind of cheered for the Crew. You know, they've always kind of been my Eastern Conference team, and so I've followed their whole resurgence. And there was a point where they were on the road to Austin, and the fans rallied, and they tried to get rid of the name Crew, and the fans rallied. And now an owner came in that believed in them, bought the team, and since then they've been a pretty solid MLS powerhouse. They've won cups, they've competed for titles, they've been championship and championship contenders year in and year out. And they're not a huge market. They're not New York, they're not Miami, they're not LA. They're not winning players because they're tropical or whatever, you know what I mean? And they're not way overpaying for players either. And I just want us to be run more like that. You know what I mean?
Columbus and Cincinnati were two of the teams that over the past several years I've looked at and been like, these are the small market teams that show and have proven that you can succeed as a small market. I mean, RSL succeeded as a small market for a long time too. So that's one thing that's kind of been prevalent all over RSL. It's just been kind of hanging over their head like a specter of it's a small market, so we can't go out and get the Zlatans and the Messis and the whoever big name signing some team is in New York or LA or wherever is getting. We can't compete with that. So we've got to go do the small thing and find these diamonds in the rough. And it seems like that's fine. Do you have to do that? But Cincinnati went from the historically the worst team in the league 2 years in a row to incredible in about a year or two. Columbus, same thing, went from almost not existing to winning championships to competing. And they're not bigger than Salt Lake. They're not better than Salt Lake. They're not, like you said, they're not tropical. They're not anything. So why do I have to accept that like small market teams just have small market troubles and we just can't go out and spend money and win because that's what they did and it worked.
So, how would you categorize last season? Do you think that the coaching was sufficient enough last season to get the result?
No.
What was wrong with last season?
I mean it's been the same coaching for the last 3 or 4 years and it's been the same results for the last 3 or 4 years. I think we ran the numbers and Pablo averages like 1.3 points per game over the course of his time with RSL, which is miserable. It's bad. It's not good. I mean, there's a lot of specifics if we want to talk about specifics from year to year, like tactically or like lineups and formations and things that have changed. But I, none of it is like good enough or solving a problem or anything like that. I think the team lately, whether they mean to or not, they've kind of fallen back on like, well, we don't have the players to compete with all these other teams. So naturally, we're not going to be the best team in the league. And I think they've kind of allowed Pablo to be just a mediocre coach because they have mediocre players. And it's just that's what it seems like. Pablo's just a mediocre coach, and we've just got mediocre players. And there's not one that's making the other better than they are. They're both just it's a mediocre roster and a mediocre coach. I
And the difference between Cincinnati and Columbus and RSL. Columbus has Nancy, right?
yeah.
And Cincinnati has Noonan, who RSL was in between flirting with when they signed Pablo permanently. And I think that is a great point. If the team only is better when the coaches or when the players are better, what does that say about the coaching when you need better players to have better seasons as opposed to a coach that can get the most out of the players? And I think the one thing that we were talking after the game one time, and I give you credit for this all the time, when you're pointing out Pablo isn't good at getting more out of players. He just finds the players that are doing what he wants and puts them where he needs them. Kind of like the Noel Caliscan
Yeah.
conversation, moving into midfield when you could be coaching up and then getting a Nelly who's a better player and having him do what you need as opposed to just moving players around and, destroying someone's confidence during the season.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it feels like if the team wants to get better, you have to get one of those two just has to improve. You either have to go out and get a coach that can make mediocre players play way better, or you just have to get way better players that can make up for your mediocre coach. But that's just not what's happened the last 2 or 3 years at RSL.
That's kind of what they said in the press conference they were planning to do, right? They were like, yeah, we're going to come in, we're going to get these tent pole players, right?
Do
to
it.
prop up the team and be the coach on the field. And I was like, that sounds like exactly what Trevor just said, right?
Yeah, like it's very much at this point like I'll believe it when I see it because they've been talking for years about we're gonna get better and we're gonna do this, that, and the other. And really, the thing that made this team incredible under Pablo's tenure was they went out and spent a bunch of money on Chicho. You know what I mean? And then they got players around Chicho to kind of make that work, and it did, and it worked really well until it stopped working. But that's another point.
But
You know what I
that's
mean?
not
Like,
just soccer stuff.
yeah, exactly. Until it didn't work, it was working great. But that's the first time in a long time that they've just simply gone out and bought a player that they desperately needed instead of like luck boxing their way into a Diego Luna signing or luck boxing their way into a Gomez signing. You know what I mean? Just picking up these kids from wherever they are and then suddenly putting them on a bigger stage, and then they're turns out they're incredible. That's great scouting. That's great signing. But they haven't just simply gone and spent money on a proven player in a long time. And once they did, it suddenly worked. Crazy.
Well, so you brought up the whole Diego signing and Gomez. They were not what they are now
No,
when they were signed. I mean, there was development there, and I think
right.
that's where a lot of fans don't pay attention to. Because honestly, Pablo does really good work when it comes to development. I mean, I disagree with you. I mean that in the most polite way, obviously, because I love
Yeah.
you. You're fantastic. But you saw if you watch Diego Luna coming from Locomotive to here, right? He was with Locomotive. Oh,
Yeah.
I sound so
El
smart
Paso.
right now. It's incredible. This is weird. You saw him struggle. Like that first season he was with us, he was not what everybody was saying. He wasn't like this amazing talent. He was struggle busting all over the field.
Yeah.
But I mean, you saw after he's had a bunch of conversations with Pablo that he was like, I got to work on my offense and my defense. And so Pablo does have a certain say when it comes to growth. But I do see your point. Like, when are we going to start becoming a more serious team and holding people more accountable? Because I don't think there really is any accountability for any sort of negative action that we do. And I
Yeah.
want to see that change, you know?
Yeah. And I agree. To your point, Diego and Gomez are two great examples of Pablo developing youth and taking those players and making them much better. I don't know that I want to completely credit Pablo with that, but that's me being not a big fan of Pablo. You're right to point it out, but what I would counter with is how many other young players have we signed either from the academy or from other teams that we've signed at that 18, 19, 20-year old that it just didn't work out. I mean, we've got how so many academy kids during Pablo's tenure that we've signed when they were somewhere between the age of 14 and 18 that didn't work out, just weren't good players, ended up being sold to, excuse me, either a USL team or traded to a MLS team, or just never saw the field. You know what I mean? There's a lot to be said about that being maybe the GM's fault, but that's where I struggle to give Pablo credit for developing young players because he developed a couple and the ones that he succeeded on were huge successes. But it's not an every single person thing. It's not an every single player thing. There's been stories of Pablo specifically, and Pablo said this. There's been players that he specifically were young players that he specifically didn't like or didn't want to play for silly reasons. One of them was because he preferred a guy with a college education to a guy straight out of high school. You know what I mean? Like he's had specific
Is that
huge
why
failures.
Alofsky didn't get in, right? Or Musovsky or some of these guys. I just think
Yeah,
Musovsky was we couldn't afford him. I think that's more of a GM thing, but he still goes to Seattle and performs. And then Alofsky goes to San Diego and scores, goes to Philly and scores. Like, but he couldn't
yeah.
see the field here, you know.
There's definite misses that were under Pablo, and so that's why I don't know what the numbers say about other teams. I feel like we're pretty average at developing players and signing young players and turning them into really good professionals. I don't know how much of that is Pablo versus just the player's mentality or what. I don't know how much I want to give Pablo credit for that.
That's a good question because I was thinking about this all week. I mean, what is the number? Should it be 15%? Is it 20% of the kids that you sign that turn out? It's probably not an incredibly high number because there's so many kids that are coming through your system. So I don't know what the number is either. I haven't looked, but and some of it is the players. I mean, we talked to Axel Kai a couple of times, and
You could just tell, right?
yeah,
It's
the
not
start
that-
of this season, he came in for the interviews, and Tyler and I were there, and we were just like, oh, that this guy doesn't get it. He
Yeah,
is he might be a great have some talent, but everything else he just doesn't get yet. So I
Yeah.
wasn't surprised when. So I'm right there with you. Like, I don't know what the number is, but there feels like there should be more players developed.
Yeah, and I do, from one perspective, from a financial perspective, RSL the last several years has done much better at developing players. I think for years we were developing like MLS kind of level players, um, and you could eventually trade them or get a little bit out of some of those players. But selling Gomez, huge money. Selling Barajas for not a lot of money, but pretty good money
Right?
for a kid that we had for like 6 months or whatever it was. You know what I mean? And soon, who knows how soon, but soon, we're probably going to sell Diego for a whole heap of money. And so, from that perspective, RSL, yeah, they're definitely doing great for being able to get players that you can then sell on for a lot of money. But then, how do they use that money? The Gomez money, I don't have the information in front of me, but somebody put together the like signings that they did immediately after the Gomez sale, and they're miserable, guys. Like we made 11 million, we spent 8, and I think we got like 4 goals and like 3 assists or something like that out of it. Like it's so on again, it's like on some parts we succeed and are succeeding, and that's great, but then we just can't follow up with any of it. We can't do the follow up to like actually capitalize on it.
Yeah, I was wondering this season, um, who was on the hot seat. It didn't feel like anybody was on the hot seat. Pablo or Kurt, and I wonder how much.
said, "Hey, how does it feel to be on that hot seat in the presser?" I was like, "Hey, bro."
Yeah.
But I think Cabral really waxed over some of the all those misses with the Lachlan and the Markchuk and the Diogo and the Forster Ajago and Ariel
Piol.
Pial, who may have some talent, but he found his way into the Pablo doghouse by the end of the season. Couldn't even make the bench the last 2 games. So, what are your thoughts on the players down the list? And is that the case? Cabral kind of was the only reason that RSL almost made the playoffs or made the play-in.
No, Cabral, I think genuinely like I mean, because we made the play in tied for 10th and 11th place, and we just beat them on tiebreakers. So like that's again, I said that like making the playoffs is good, but the way we made the playoffs is
Barely dodged
embarrassing.
the barrel.
Yeah, we made the playoffs on tiebreakers on the lowest like point total that RSL's ever made or made the playoffs before. Like, yeah, so it's kind of embarrassing to hang your hat on that. But Cabral was a big part of that. I know there's stats that like deep analytics that we can look at, and Matt loves to look at this stuff. That basically like you can take a player and calculates through some formula like how many points that player was like worth or how many points that player saved throughout the season. And goalkeepers obviously have a little bit bigger say in that as well as like strikers. But I genuinely think he was worth like 7 points this season, like comfortably. That's how many draws he saved or how many wins he saved because of his incredible play. Like if we had another goalkeeper that wasn't Cabral, I think we definitely don't make the playoffs. He was incredible in so many moments and in so many games. Um, yeah, and I mean, you've heard him talk in the press conference. You've heard other players talk about him. He's clearly a favorite of everybody on the team. Everybody points to him as the leader. The yeah, so he's can't say enough good words about Cabral. The rest of the players you mentioned, you can say a lot of bad words and not good words, but they just underperformed across the board. Um, and I think a lot of players on the team underperformed. I mean, Brian Vera, Justin Glad underperformed this year. Katranis wasn't. I feel like there's more to Katranis. I don't think he's like a world class player by any means, but all season it felt like he could have been giving more. Um, it felt like that across the board. Ojeda, Anelli, Ruiz, Caliscan, whoever was there generally was pretty good, but the rest of the team not being that good kind of makes them look bad. Or at least I'm willing to blame the players around them for their failures, because I do genuinely believe that's the most important position on this configuration of the team. And I think all of those guys are great players and did play that really well. I don't really like Caliscan there, but he's good and he did good. So yeah, I mean it's tough. It's a tough roster top to bottom. I think there's not really a whole lot of standouts.
What do they need to do next year? And will Diogo be there? How much do they need to?
Well, Diogo's gonna be there. Do you
Well,
want him there?
Oh yeah,
Hold
looking
on.
at this roster. If this roster comes back next year, we'll be right back where we were. There has to be some
So
changes.
I was looking at the roster before they released the roster decisions. Um, every DP player, let's see if I get this right. Every DP on the team, every U22 initiative player, and every TAM player on the team is under contract past 2025, with the exception of Brian Vera and Ojeda, I think. There were two players whose contracts were up in 2025, but they had multiple option years remaining. Everybody else, their soonest contract end date is 2026, right? So that includes your Marchuk, that includes your Giogo, that includes RAPL. Um, all of those players are here for the long haul. And that's the part of the roster where it's so easy to get a big difference maker. The two guys who were on option years got picked up. So our entire top 12 players on the roster, between DPs, U22 players, and TAM players, are all coming back next year. So there was a bunch of guys that were let go, but they're kind of in the middle and the supplement part of the roster. A couple of them were homegrown players, um, not difference makers, not players that, them creating room on the roster doesn't let you then go get another DP, doesn't let you go get another U22 player. We're full on DPs. So if we want to get a new DP, we have to get rid of one, or we have to buy one down somehow, or we have to sell one. I know there's been rumors, and none of this is substantiated by anything I know, but there's rumors that Giogo might be sold back to Europe. There's rumors that Marchuk might be sold back to Europe. There's thoughts that there's ways that you can make space there, and you have to make space if you're going to get a difference maker. Because at this point, you're getting role players, you're getting position guys, depth pieces. That's the room you have on this roster. So the roster's it was in a terrible place at the beginning of last season. It's in a terrible place now. They have this offseason to improve it. And there's definitely things that can be done, but things have to be done in order to do better, good things. And that's that. I don't know. I know there's definitely room for moves to be made, but I don't know that this team is going to make those moves. They just kept their coach. They just kept their GM. They kept the two guys that are like in charge of making those moves. And those guys already made roster decisions on exercising options on at least two of those. So like I don't know. I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, for me, they have to make changes. I don't know how they do it, or they have to at least look like, or they have to look like they're making the effort to change it. I don't know how you can justify bringing Diogo back. I really don't. I mean, he's your DP, he's your highest paid player, and he spent more time running around trying not to. He looks like he's playing hard. He knows he gets in good positions, and then he does nothing. He waited until the last game of the season before I saw him sprint anywhere against St. Louis, and I'm just like, who is that guy? Oh, wait a second, where'd that guy come from? So I've been kind of harsh on him, but I don't know how you can justify bringing him back, even if you have to eat his salary or do something.
Yeah, and what drives me nuts with Diogo is he just won't stick into any tackle. Like he won't take, like if he sees a guy going in for a tackle, he'll pull out of it hop out of it and give the ball up and not stick in and take a hit for the team, which is what
Yeah.
that position needs to do. Your 10 has to control the game. And if he can't be that 10 because he can't stay on the ball because he's a big softy when somebody bumps his shoulder, he's just, oh, I'm out. Like that can't be our guy for Salt Lake. You know what I mean? We can't have that be our
Well,
leader and our
that
highest
can't be
paid
your
player.
guy. That can't be your guy in this league. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't watch a whole lot of Portuguese soccer, so maybe it's a little bit softer there. But I know every single player that comes here from overseas talks about how physical it is. You see the difference in physicality from watching MLS to watching Premier League or Crawley Town or Serie A or whatever other European league you watch. It's just more physical here. And if you're not a physical number 10, yeah, you're right. You're probably not going to cut it.
We started out the early season. We had the Menendez lines, kind of like the baseball line, but
Yeah.
the Johnny Menendez line, and
It's
after
the lowest possible bar for a DP, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
and after about 5 or 6 games, we just started talking about it because Diogo was so far under. It wasn't even worth
Diego
bringing.
Menendez.
Wasn't even funny anymore because he wasn't living up to the bare minimum. Johnny Menendez, who he couldn't figure out how to play in this league.
Yeah. Just like you said, Diogo was the player that 25 minutes, 45 minutes into the game, he would do something, get a ball and dribble somebody, dribble two guys or take a shot. And it was always at that point when I was like, oh, yeah, he's playing. I remember now. Because he's just a non factor, and you can't have that from a DP. You just can't. I don't know what you need to do to get more out of him. I do think somebody mentioned the other day, and I don't remember who it was, that their theory was that Jogo's used to a different style of soccer and used to players doing things a little bit differently than our team is. And maybe it's just that we need a higher caliber um, winger or a higher caliber striker or somebody that he can like play off of a lot better because his brain just works at a different level and he just needs somebody much better than him to pass to make him look good. And that might be the case. It might be that he's trying to pass it to Piol and Agata and Yago all season, and those guys can't do anything with it. So he looks bad. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm always down to sign better players in and around that position. And if that's what it takes to make Giogo good, great. But you're hamstrung by the fact that like you still need to get rid of some TAM players or some DPs to make room to get that level of player around him.
Yeah, I'd make the argument Matt Crooks. He was my man crush last season. Love Matt Crooks, and he but it's kind of similar situation where Matt plays a different style, and the team needed to figure out how to play with Matt. But at the same time, Matt figured out how to play with the players on the team,
Mm-hmm.
right? Matt was an integral. They always talked about how Matt was such a big help for Andres Gomez, right? Andres Gomez learned that he could trust Matt, and they worked out together. I see what you're saying, but I don't see Diogo doing that part of it. I can see where hey, he needs to be around better players and he'll shine, and players with his technical ability. But I don't see him. I don't think he wants to be here, and you can see
Yeah,
that.
that's that's kind of the vibe I get. That was my problem with the theory was like, yeah, you definitely can put better players around him, but you can also just get a better player to replace him as well. You know what I mean?
Or he could figure out how to play with this team.
Yeah.
Don't change
Or
with Gozo, with Luna, with
yeah,
those four, just those four.
like it's not like
Cruz, if he
he's
wants it.
yeah, it's not like he's got complete scrubs wall to wall. He's got some good talent around him. And I mean, it's 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds that are better than him. I don't know if they actually are, but they're certainly playing like they're better. They're playing like they want to be better. And yeah, I agree with you guys. I just don't see that from Jogo. I don't see that effort. I don't see the fire. I don't see. Yeah, I would want a player that's that much better in theory to be the guy that's yelling at players or teaching young guys. And I just don't see that from him. I don't see him trying to direct anything for anybody. He feels like he's just going through the motions. And it's crazy to me that you can have a player and a coach that's going to let a player do that all season.
That that was the part that really started to wear me out at the end of this season was the hypocrisy of Diogo, right?
Yeah.
RSL and Pablo talks all his time about, effort and moments and mantras and the universe and sage and lavender, whatever it takes to be out there. And then at the same time, you're preaching that to everyone on the team, but your highest paid player, you don't hold accountable. And he still gets to go out there and you just say, oh, the fans just can't see what he's doing. That may be true, I'm still learning the game, but there was too much gaslighting when it came to Diogo this season for me. And it finally just kind of wore me out.
Yeah. I do remember there was one, or maybe it was 2 or 3 games in a row, but there was definitely one where I remember that I asked Pablo, like, at what point do you pull him? Like, because he's not producing, and how much competition is there at that position? Because whatever competition there is, we'd like to see it because what we're seeing now, like, isn't good enough. And he gave an answer that, like, it was fun because he gave a look, and like, if you're in the room, it made a big difference. It was one of those answers. He gave a look and was kind of like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of like, "Oh, there's competition. Don't worry about it." And it felt very much like he understood that Jogo wasn't doing enough. Um, and then I think Jogo played like one more game, and then he was pulled for a couple games after that. And that was but that was like 10 games into the season. It really felt like there was some accountability being taken at that point. But then he just sat out for a game or two, and then just came right back and was doing the same thing, and then played for most of the season.
Well, he
So
probably needed to be in more post games, Trevor. That's probably the power of Trevor wasn't there
yeah, that's what it
to
was.
to have that influence on
Yeah,
the roster, the 11 on the field. There's
it's
another player
definitely
that we love to talk about this year. I love to talk about. If I'm getting a tattoo, it's a Johnny Russell tattoo. But what were your thoughts on Johnny Russell? He had played 344 minutes, had 2 goals, half of what the amount that the DP with 27, 6, 7 times the amount of minutes.
first off, that's a terrible idea. Johnny Russell tattoo sounds like awful business. I'm still not entirely over the fact that we signed a Sporting Kansas City player, especially the Sporting Kansas City player that was like a part of all of the good rivalry times that we've had with Kansas City. Um, which is a rivalry I miss, but that's another conversation. Um, I thought the signing didn't make a whole lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but one was, yeah, because he was successful. Like, and it wasn't like he needed time to like gel with the team. Like, he came in and immediately was good. I don't know that he was necessarily like an improvement all of the time over whoever he was replacing, but he's good. Clearly, he's a veteran player, scored goals, was passing the ball, doing good things. But then
Picking
there were
up three
games where,
kids. Oh, that-
yeah, like, there were games where like he was on the bench and it's like, oh, we need to bring a player in that's dynamic on the wing and a veteran presence. And then he just didn't see the field. And then there was times where,
Tyler Wolf would come in, which
yeah,
I
exactly.
think Tyler's a good player, but he's has almost no results for the year.
But why are you bringing in Johnny Russell if you're just going to bring in Tyler Wolf?
You're just gonna play Tyler Wolf. Agreed. Yeah.
Like, you
Especially like
bring in,
in the playoff game, 65th minute, where you need a vet, and then you send in after Noel Calscan, got yanked at halftime because the moment was too big for him, and then you send in another kid. But yeah, that
yeah,
was frustrating for me. But I totally get that who he was and what he brought. But maybe 900 minutes, he gets 6 goals. Who knows?
and
Never,
and maybe he
we'll never
doesn't get
know.
any, maybe he doesn't get any more goals. But the point is, for me, it's like, yeah, if you sign that type of player, it's for a reason, and they didn't use him for that reason.
Yeah, I
And
always
that,
say if you can't be good, at least be exciting, right? Like it, you know what I mean? Throw a guy
yeah,
out there like Johnny who's gonna create something and at least get some shots off, and like at least be exciting if you can't be good. And
yeah,
if you can't be good or exciting, be tough and knock people over and make the
yeah,
game entertaining that way, right? Like, oh, that's a
exactly.
yellow. Oh, we got his elbow up there, right? Like, then we'll just go back to like the old days when Dunny played for us.
The
The,
wing. I loved Winger.
There's an old Italian coach that he actually came to MLS for a minute. His name was Walter Zenga. Um, but he was the epitome of that. And I loved it so much. His teams were rarely like very good teams, but they were always exciting. They always played really just, to be honest, it was stupid soccer, but it was exciting, fun soccer. It was very much like Route One on steroids. Like their opening kickoff was 11 players on the line and they just pass it forward. And like that was kind of a trademark of his style of play, was like, we're just going to drive the ball down their throat. And they got scored on a lot because that's what happens. But he was just very much like, we're just going to play exciting soccer and we're going to try to score because goals are exciting and goals are good. You need goals. And that was like what his whole tactical philosophy was based on, was goals are going to happen and we're either going to score them or they're going to get scored on us. But if we score more than them, then we win. You know what I mean? But that his teams, like I said, were never like the best in the league, but they were always fun to watch. And yeah, RSL just isn't that. I wish they were. That'd be a lot of fun. If you're going to be a bad team, you should at least be fun to watch.
So, if you had a magical pen of some sort to rewrite who the head coach is and who the GM is, what names are you writing down?
This is okay. I'll answer the GM one. Elliot Fall.
What? You're gonna call Elliot Fall? Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to call up Elliot Fall and make him the GM again because he understood the restrictions of the roster. He played the roster very well, and a lot of his signings were like good signings that the team needed. Were they all hits and all like, was he superstar GM? No. But he was also doing a lot more with what he had than what Kurt Schmid has done with what he's got. Kurt Schmid had, in terms of RSL, an unlimited amount of money to go out and sign players, and look at who he signed. Elliot Fall had no money to sign any players whatsoever, and they were better than the team that we have now. So that would be my immediate go-to.
Bad argument, huh?
I'm sure that there are other like GMs around the league that we could look at that would probably be better, but I haven't paid attention to a lot of other teams in the league enough to like follow all of that. But coaches, I know this is unrealistic, but Jim Curtin's available.
Yeah.
And it's unrealistic not because Jim Curtin wouldn't come to Salt Lake. It's unrealistic because Jim Curtin has said he's taking time away from soccer. He's not interested in traveling or moving for another team anytime soon. He wants to spend time with his family. Totally fair, totally respectable. But that's a level of coach that RSL should be trying to get. You know what I mean? I don't know who else is available except for Caleb Porter, and I would never in my life advocate for Caleb Porter to be coaching at this team. But he's also won a couple cups. There's worse options as far as like resumes are concerned. But that's the kind of caliber of coach that RSL should be going after and had a good opportunity to, is coaches that know the league, are familiar with the league, have coached in this league, and have won in this league.
So you wouldn't go outside of the MLS to sign somebody?
I'm not opposed to going outside of MLS, but there's always the fear, and it's just a bigger risk to go outside of MLS or to go outside of USL. Because you might just get a coach that just doesn't understand the league, doesn't understand how it works. But I mean, somebody like Tata Martino came in, and obviously he's a great coach, and he just immediately succeeded. So, like, but he was a known quantity. Everybody knew that he was a great coach, and everybody knew that as soon as he came to MLS, it was like, oh, he's going to be great. And turns out he was, also because they spent a bunch of money, but he's just a great coach. You know what I mean? And like I said, I wish I paid more attention to like the coaching carousel these days and knowing who's available and who's not. I just don't know the names.
Peter Vermees, like that's the only one that would be worse than Pablo as far as like rivalries go, right? Pete Vermees.
Yeah, but at least with Pete Vermees, again, this is me just making arguments. He's won championships. He's had very good teams.
Marcelo Balboa would be a bad signing.
Nah, that would be terrible. Yeah.
Well,
But-
here's my argument. Not to cut you off, apologies. my argument that is that if it was me, right, I got the Magic pen. I'm looking for someone with more international experience, and I would go outside and find someone out there in the championship, somewhere in another league that has the interest of coming here and giving that a shot, a little more dynamic, a little more offensive, somebody with a few more ideas than park the bus. Because I think the league is growing, teams are getting better, and I wonder if the MLS former players to coach pipeline needs to be a little bit longer, and that the teams that have former MLS players are seem to be struggling a little bit. At least, you know,
Michael Bradley style.
yeah, I would. That's where I would go, and then if that doesn't work out, then I'd come back and maybe look inside somewhere. But this constant, you know, hiring the assistant coach has got to go.
It's no, it's the worst. One place that like I think would be very easy to go find a good coach and bring them to MLS and they would succeed is Mexico. There's a lot of teams that have a lot of good coaches in Mexico. You know what I mean? There's been several coaches that have come to MLS from Mexico, and I might get this wrong, but I feel like most of them have succeeded. We're good. There's some that like clearly we're not. But you know, you're going to get that from some coaches sometimes. But if you want to go international, that's one pool that I think is very big that MLS teams haven't explored is coaches of Mexican teams or coaches around the Liga MX carousel because they have the same thing that MLS does. There's a lot of coaches that just kind of ride the carousel and they just go from team to team to team and they're there for a couple years and then they go somewhere else and then they go somewhere else and you know, Mexico has those coaches, and not all of them are bad. And I bet some of them probably better than Pablo, or at least would be for 2 or 3 years. And then you can go get another guy when this one doesn't work out. But yeah, if you're going to go international, that's what I would say is I would explore Mexican coaches. I
Well,
think that's a great option that the league hasn't taken advantage of.
and we've been cross-pollinating with a lot of the Leagues Cup stuff. And what was
Exactly.
the team that came in here and just
The Redhead San Luis.
San Luis. Yeah.
Yeah.
San Luis, that coach seemed like he had his team playing super hyper, just like exciting soccer. And I was like, man, wish we played like that.
Probably
Yeah.
can't afford Monterrey's head coach. I mean,
You can. That's the great thing about coaches is you can just pay coaches. That's what I don't understand about MLS teams that are like, oh, well, we got to hire the assistant coach because there's no salary cap on coaches. You can go pay a guy $10 million a year. Get the guy that will charge $10 million a year to coach. And I'll bet he's very good at his job. I don't know how much Pablo makes, but you can spend more money and get better coaches. And like you said, Leagues Cup, that's a great example. Those coaches are now becoming more familiar with MLS. So it's not like you're getting a guy from the championship who's only ever coached in England coming over here and maybe doesn't know anything about the league. That's the risk you take with that kind of coach. But there's not a whole lot of guys in Mexico that aren't at least a little bit familiar with MLS.
one last thing, we appreciate you coming on. We've enjoyed. It's been rather cathartic for me. I appreciate it. This conversation,
Of course.
But
Yeah, of course.
there were two stats. There were a couple of stats this year that really, because I try and be positive. That's kind of like we've always tried to find the good things, the positive things, and try and be glass half full. But I was thinking about it today, glass half full of what? Yeah, right. It's not been great. But there's a couple of stats that really stood out to me this year, and one was RSL led the league in fewest come from behind points. 3. They had one game in San Jose where they were down 1, came back, scored 2 goals. That's it. 3 points. And if I'm right, I double check. I'll double check. But they also led the league in most points lost from a leading position, like 24 points.
Yeah.
Lost from a leading position. So how much of that is players and how much of that is tactics and coaching?
That's 100%
yeah.
coaching, especially when your coach is like his whole thing is like mentality and like X dog and all those. Yeah,
Moments.
it's a game of moments. Well, we missed every single moment. There's so many moments that
Thanks for
we
bringing
missed
it
as a
up.
team.
Right?
Yeah, and I can't imagine that that's a player issue. It's a discipline issue. It's a focus issue. It's it's a mentality issue. And that's what's so frustrating about it is for years we were told, and Pablo's told us as well by all these other people that are watching the team and like insiders, that Pablo's a mentality guy. He's an effort guy. He's the guy that builds the team up and gets them ready and gets them motivated, and they're going to run through a wall for Pablo. Well, when that's the team that you put out all year, that's a mentality focus issue. That's that's a game of moments issue. Uh, and that's on the coach. Players can have moments where they mess up, but when there's no accountability for it, when it just is a constant theme throughout the entire season, no matter who's on the field, no matter what is else is going on, who's injured, who's not, extenuating circumstances, it's the coach. That's the common denominator there.
My other favorite thing too was in the post game talking about how RSL likes to play with the ball, defend with the ball, right?
Yep.
They love to defend with the ball, and then they never had the ball. They're always parking a bus. It looked like so. There was a disconnect there, which as I grow and learn the games, it's like that doesn't make sense. I mean, I know that's what you want to do, but at the same time, Pablo's always say, worry about the team getting forward, and they were always worried about the counter. So there's just so much stuff that just wasn't starting to add up finally for me this season, and yeah, it just wasn't making sense. So it's been kind of frustrating, but like I said, maybe the question is, what are the silver linings going forward next year? If we want to end on, what, how's it going to get better next year? Where's the silver lining, Trevor?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to be Debbie Downer over here, but I genuinely don't know what the silver lining
Come on,
is
Trevor,
right
giving
now.
you opportunity to
The
be
silver
the
lining.
shining light that lead us fans into glory next season.
All right, I'll give you three. And I'll start with the two good ones. Cabral sticking around. That's great. That rules. That's always a positive. Gozo still going to be here next year. That's great. Love to see the development of that kid. And Cabral staying here is it's just a win all around for every reason that there is. The half silver lining is Diego Luna is going to be here at least for half the season, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Next year, but again, he may not be here at the beginning of the season, but I think that'd be a really silly thing. I think you keep Luna here, and I think that the plan is that we keep Luna here until the World Cup, and then we just make a bunch of money on him. Great plan. I'm down for it. I think it sucks and it's unfortunate, but like you're not gonna let a guy be a big part of the national team, go to the World Cup as a host nation, and then if the offers come in, not take them. That's that's silly and bad. Never do that. So as long as Luna's here, that's the third silver lining. But the problem is he's probably not going to be here all season. So that's why and besides that, I mean, I love Emeka and Ellie, but he's not a championship difference maker. I think he's a great player. That's another silver lining. But
You're doing great.
yeah,
Keep going. Keep going.
no,
More
that's
keep
it.
going.
That's it. Every other player
Yeah,
that I
well,
think of coming to mind, like, isn't that great, isn't a silver lining, dude. Like,
How do you feel about Olatunji then? Do you think he's going to be a player that's going to convert a lot of goals?
I think Matt Doyle said it best when he did like his season in review, whatever. And he pointed out basically what Olatunji is good at is getting the ball and running straight at the goal and just being a big guy with the ball, which is a necessary guy. You need that guy. But the way he put it was like, there's probably 4 or 5 guys playing college that are that big and that fast and can do exactly that for RSL for a lot less than Olatunji. So I'm not saying that that's unnecessary or that makes him a bad player, but he's not incredibly dynamic. I think he appears dynamic compared to what we've had, right? So I don't think like long term
Yeah.
he's the solution. I think he's part of the puzzle, and he can definitely succeed for RSL and be a good player. And I am excited about him, but he's not like the guy. He's not the solution.
And we skipped a few people in the summer transfer window. Yedlin and Cruz. Those guys make any difference? I mean, any silver linings there, Trevor?
Not for Cruz. No, Cruz made one of the most boneheaded plays I've seen in MLS.
Tackle.
You
His
can't do
like
that. You can't do that, Trevor. You
no,
just gotta make up stuff.
just so there's legitimately like three moments that come to mind in like my MLS soccer watching history as like just the dumbest, most brain dead things I've seen a player do, and that's up there. I don't know exactly where it ranks, but it's very close to Ryan Miller. It was no, his name wasn't Ryan Miller. The guy that Thierry Henry was setting up for a free kick stoppage time to like to win the game, to advance in the playoffs, or to make the play, something like that. Critical moment, the most critical moment in the season, and Thierry Henry's over the ball. And Roy Miller, that was his name. Thierry Henry's over the ball, and he's about to take the free kick, and then Roy Miller comes up and is like, "No, I'm going to take it," and just refuses to let Henry take it, and he puts it 30 feet over the goal, goes out, blows a whistle, game's over. That's the level of like what Cruz did. So bad. So I'm fully out on Cruz. Um, what was the other player you mentioned? Yedlin.
Yedlin.
I,
I guess
I'm
that's
fine
not a
with
silver
Yedlin.
lining if you didn't remember.
I no, yeah. Yedlin, I think, is a fine signing. I hope to see more from him next year. I was not really impressed with him, what he brought this year, but I think, and this is me putting words in his mouth and thoughts in his head, but I think he came and kind of saw what position the team was at and didn't really put in a whole lot of effort this season. But we'll see. We've got him locked up for next year, so we'll see. I think he should be much better than he was this year, and that's if he is,
A
and that's
silver
great.
lining.
Silver
Another
lining.
silver lining, yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that.
We're getting better. Glass is half full. Well, talking about bonehead plays, the first one that came up in my mind was Will Johnson not passing the ball and letting Wayne Rooney steal it off him for that big long pass that got DC United, I think, into the playoffs. All he had to do is chip it past him. All he had to do is chip it past him.
Yeah.
Remember that one year when we lost to Kansas City in the playoffs and Beasler had a wide open goal? He just didn't slot it home. He didn't want to one time it. So he trapped it, and then all of a sudden everybody just remember that.
Or we lost the U.S. Open Cup. So anyway,
Yeah. But those are all like in the moment. We're playing the game and we got
well, back silver
what's
lining.
that? Silver linings. Yeah.
Worked you hard today, Trav. Sorry.
No, you guys are fine. This is great.
So we can't thank you enough. We kept you a long time, probably longer than you thought, but we've really enjoyed having you on. It was, like I said, it's very cathartic for me to have these conversations and gets other perspective. We have a lot of respect for what you guys do over there at your podcast and being some OGs of the RSL podcasting universe. And so hopefully we'll do something enough where we piss off the front office and they reach out to us. Huh? Yeah, we've got some work to do to catch up.
I could tell you the one that keeps coming. This is just fun story time, and this is my favorite. Yeah, I'll name him because everybody knows it's Trey. Um, I said something on Twitter, and I don't remember the exact moment in the game, but it was something that Pablo did. It was a substitution that he made that just was silly and dumb. And I just tweeted something like, Pablo is dumber than a bag of hammers. And then I immediately, almost immediately, got not a phone call, but a text yelling at me about that specifically. But so maybe you don't want all the interactions, but it's, yeah, but
Sub was dumb as a bag of hammers instead of Pablo specifically, you know.
yeah, but yeah. In hindsight, I probably could have said something a little bit differently, but I stand by what I said at the
Well,
time.
you should.
I don't think there was a better way to describe it.
Just subbing.
Well, my thing is I have a coaching background, so the way I perceive things is a lot different from everyone else. I don't really have that. I'm just a fan kind of mentality. I'm a little bit deeper You know.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the best description so far, Brenna. So,
Yeah.
well, Trevor, we
I
can't
love-
thank you enough for joining
I
us.
love that you're saying
And
that
we'll-
with your hat like that. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Gotta be hip and cool to be a coach.
It's late.
It is late. So thank you so much, Trevor. Look
Yeah, of
forward to
course.
seeing you next season in the press box and having some more great conversations. And we really
Absolutely.
appreciate you joining us. Thanks. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.